Hello there, I'm Begalius, and I want to get controversial, not for the first time. I want to get controversial with music, which typically I don't really get away with. I always get away with it when it's like, well, for the most part, when it's like gaming, and film and stuff like that, I typically get away with it. But in my last video, I talked about politics. I basically said that there's no such thing as the far left and the far right are in charge and are bad. And I still got away with that point. So I don't know why, but I just don't get away with talking about music. I remember the backlash I got for saying that We Don't Trust You, Future and Metro Boomin, was just a little bit overrated. And I got absolutely torn to shreds. I'm not allowed to talk about music on this channel. So I'm going to talk about music here. And I think I'm a little bit more... I'm not. I look like someone who's more qualified to talk about this than, Future, Metro Boomin. But the fact is, I'm as big a hip-hop head as anyone else. As a matter of fact, I probably listen to more rap than anything else at the moment. But still, I want to talk about it. I was listening to the Black Parade on the way home. I'm a huge MCR guy. Carry over from when I was a kid. I know. You know what? I'll say it. I like FOB. You know what? I'll say it. Kind of like Panic. the first couple of albums. Pretty Odd is actually sincerely a great album. Use the time sincerely. MCR, man. MCR. So I am going to say this right now, and I'm going to say it with my chest. 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. Better than the Black Parade. Sorry. I said it. Now, I will say, like, when growing up, I remember the first time I ever heard Welcome to the Black Parade, the title song, and I remember thinking, like, this is so, like, heavy and angsty and angry. And I was, like, 12 years old. But I was thinking, like, it's so angsty and angry and heavy. And I don't know why I thought that. Because lyrically, we'll carry on. It's very, like... very optimistic, and I don't know why, like, any part of me thought this is oppressive and, like, deep and angry, but I think it was a lot to do with the music video. I think I saw the video at the same time as I heard the song, but yeah, I mean, I remember hearing it and thinking, like, wow, this is a really heavy track. I never expected it to be, like, the seminal millennial album. I think this is like the quintessential millennial music moment is this album. Is it my favorite millennial album? No. Funeral by Arcade Fire is my favorite millennial album. In fact, it's my favorite album of all time. I think it's the perfect album. But I do think that, like, Funeral is just a little bit more chuggy, maybe, than Black Parade. And the MCR, I think one of the reasons that it is one of the seminal sort of millennial musical moments is because they get away with it. The songs still slap somehow, despite being, like, so angsty and so angry and so of their time. The songs still absolutely bang. They really do. I just think 3 Cheers has better songs. I think it like bats a better average, and that's not to say that I don't like Black Parade. And let this be my review of both albums. So I'll open up by saying, like, I went on albumoftheyear.org because they remastered 3 Cheers. So I went through and I reviewed them. Not that matters. No one's like, oh my god, when's his review for the 2 MCR albums from almost 2 decades ago? Oh my god, they both came out over 2 decades ago. No, they didn't. Black Parade was 06, I think. But yeah, I went on Album of the Year and I reviewed them both and I said 3 Cheers, 90, Black Parade, 95. And I think that's perfect. I think, like, they are so on the same level. I just think 3 Cheers just pegs the post for one core reason, and that is batting average and pace. So those are 2 reasons. Batting average and pace. And I just think, like, on 3 Cheers, there isn't a bad song on that damn album. Like, I have my favorite moments. I have songs that I think are slightly better than others. But there isn't a skip on that album. It's tremendously rare, and I still think, to this day, and I really do mean this, there is no, and has been no album with pacing quite on the level of 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. And I really do mean that. Because not only does it hit, like, a really intense pace that keeps things entertaining and ferocious and loud and vibrant, but not only that, but, like, it's never too intense. It never takes itself, like, too seriously and gets too harsh on the palate. Oh, this fucking camera, dude. This fucking camera. But it's never so ferocious and so heavy and so angry that it just like keeps hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting and takes itself like way too seriously in the process. That's never the case with Three Cheers. It's always just keeping energy and holding it and retaining it. And whereas I think with Black Parade, there are a couple of moments where, they're skips. I mean, the album doesn't hit quite as hard. For example, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think quite as much of Teenagers. I know like it's a big song, it's very anthemic, but I just think it's a bit too like thin and weak and a little bit too rock and roll, a little bit too inspired by like, the older era of rock and roll songs, very like status quo of anything actually. Disenchanted, I'm not really like crazy about. Famous Last Words is a great one. Sorry, it looks as though I don't know the albums as well as I do, but it's just I don't want to make any mistakes. Famous Last Words is a great uplifting, roaring way to end the album, but again I don't think like it has that tenacity and venom that Three Cheers has, and I think that like the way that Three Cheers ends is with so much like throughout the album it carries that, like from Helena to to the closing. It's just like a wild ride the entire time, and I think that like Famous Last Words is very indicative of Black Parade as well, because like it is an uproaring, raucous song, but it doesn't keep that pace, doesn't carry that pace that they had previously. And I understand that a band has to change, and I think like, and the whole reason like I want to talk about this is because I like analyzing Black Parade, and I think it's an interesting album to analyze. But like the goal was so clearly for some cinematic tension and cinematic like energy, rather than, I think Three Cheers is just like a rock album. I think it's just an album that like bats you over the head repeatedly, whereas Black Parade, they tried to do something maybe a little bit deeper, but in doing something deeper they made something more cinematic. You have like the sounds of what are they called, life support machines, and a lot more strings involved, and I do like it when they get the strings involved, and they play around with a lot more sound elements. I think the production is definitely raised, particularly for an album that came out 2 years after the previous one. The sound gets like wider and has so much depth and breadth and also volume all packed into one, and I think that's really excellent. But I think the sacrifice of that, of playing around with different things, is that you don't have like this album that is just like this capsule where like nothing goes wrong and nothing is ever, I don't want to say weak, but nothing ever slows down, nothing ever like holds back, takes a step back or anything like that. And I can see why people would prefer Black Parade. And on Album of the Year, it has a higher user score. I see why you would prefer Black Parade. I really do. Not just for the title song, which is like this, millennial Bohemian Rhapsody anthem. I understand why you would appreciate cinematic quality over what is on Three Cheers. But for me, I will never skip a song on Three Cheers because every single song just hits like crazy. And there are songs, on Black Parade, despite the fact that it is a very different beast, that wouldn't stand out in Three Cheers, like House of Wolves or Sharpest Light. But they're my favorite songs on the album, so I think that says a lot for how I feel about the progression there. And of course, I think it is a precursor, to what came next, to Danger Days, and that things got a little bit softer and not so like angry and ferocious and stuff like that. And of course, Danger Days was their weakest album. Does it have great moments? Absolutely. There are moments on Danger Days where I absolutely lose my shit, and I can see why you would honestly, genuinely think that Danger Days is their best. I wouldn't agree. Never would. Jesus Christ, no. Oh my God. Hell no. But I could see why you would. I just think like Three Cheers is their best album. I don't know, man. I think it's like the energy of a young band who aren't trying to do something crazy. So they just end up like throwing everything they have at the wall. And when they do, all of it's stuck, and it's rare. It doesn't happen with most bands, but everything's stuck to the wall. And I think like then you're like, well, as a band, we have to progress and we have to do something different and bring something new to the table. And in doing so, there were a couple of things that didn't quite stick, I think. So yeah, that's that. That's my unique MCR opinion. I just think, sorry, Three Cheers is their best effort. Hey, maybe you agree. I don't know. I'm not okay.
The PlayStation's only $149, and you can also get leading titles.